Okay. So just to set your expectations, I'm going to be sort of sharing pieces of my testimony, sharing a couple verses. We're not going through a particular passage or anything. The topic of tonight is insecurity. So, before we get started, would anyone like to pray for us? If you don't raise your hand, Nate's going to pick you. Okay, thanks.
Lord, thank you for letting us all come together today on this nice day. Please speak through Austen and give me the wisdom to speak to us in a very special way, to touch everyone through his words and yours. Thank you for letting us all come together. Amen.
All right, so the topic of tonight is insecurity. And the very first thing I want to do, just so we're on the same page, is ask you guys what insecurity is. I'm not looking for a specific definition or some like fancy spiritual application. Just when I say insecurity, what is that? And you don't have to raise your hand either, just say it. Yep. Both those are definitely true. Okay. Yeah, you guys. Oh, somewhere over there. Lack of confidence. Yeah, those things, basically, pretty much it. I feel like insecurity, like you guys said, just something I focus on too much, that, or maybe I'm not confident on about myself. And it makes me feel stressed, makes me feel ashamed or anxious. So, when I was 14, I had just started coming to this youth group after going to my first youth retreat at Headwaters Lodge. And around that time, I was very insecure about many things. And I still have a lot of insecurities. Some of them I'll talk about later. But especially when I was like around 14, it was like, I'm pretty much insecure about everything you can think of. I think there's a picture. Could you go ahead and put that up? So, this is, I'll give you a hint. I'm not 14 in this picture. I'm not 14. But, how old do you think I am 12. In this picture? 16. 12. I heard 12. I'm not going to count 16. 10. 9.
8.
I am 13 in that picture.
Oh, so close.
13. So that was at one of Brett Blaha's birthday parties many years ago at Blaha's house. So one of the first insecurities I want to talk about is actually, I'm going to wait on that for a second. When I was this age that you see in this picture, 13, I remember always looking up to the people who were just a couple years older than me, like 15, 16, 17, and just sort of enjoying hanging around them, wanting to be accepted by them, wanting to be like them. And I specifically remember on the first youth retreat I went to at Headwaters Lodge, there was a girl named Ivy Roberts. I don't know how many of you know Ivy. They haven't come here in a little while, but back then they were coming a lot. And she turned 17 on this youth retreat. And I like barely knew Ivy at all. But I remember she turned 17, and I remember thinking to myself, like, man, it would be awesome to be 17. Like, I'm 14 right now, but like, I didn't really like being 14. I didn't like just myself because I was very insecure. And I thought, you know, man, maybe when I turn 17, I'll be over it. I'll finally have my life together. I'll finally feel confident. You know, I'll finally feel good about myself, like I thought Ivy was, just because she was 17. So, raise your hand if you're 17 in this room. Who's 17?
I would like to be.
You guys who would like to be. Yes. So I also wanted to be. So you guys who are 17, you just raise your hand. How special do you feel for being 17? Like, how awesome is it to be 17?
It's not that awesome.
Yeah, it's not, right? It's really not that awesome. It's really nothing special at all. When I turned 17, I remember on my birthday, I thought about that moment where Ivy was at the youth retreat. She turned 17. And I remember turning 17 and being like, this is what I was looking up to. Like, this is it. Like, there's really nothing more than this. And I remember being like, just laughing at myself that ever thinking 17 was a big deal, because it was not at all. I still felt like I was 14 when I was 17. Now I'm 19, and I feel like I'm just maybe getting to 15. Like, I'm just starting to get there. So I like, Yeah, we always want to look up to the next group or the next age. And I want to just start by saying that whenever you get to that age that you think is like the age where you're finally going to be cool or awesome, or where you're going to have your life together, you're going to get there and you're not going to feel like your life's together. You're probably not going to feel cool. You're probably not going to feel like you're on top of the world. That's what happened to me, at least. So, the first insecurity I want to talk about, you can put that picture back up. The first insecurity I want to talk about is my appearance. So, when I was around this age, I was very insecure about how I looked, and you can see why. So, and I think the three things that bothered me were that I looked a lot, or actually four things that bothered me. Number one, I looked a lot younger than my age. So you can tell why that bothers me. I looked like, when I saw this picture, like, for the first time, I saw it a couple years ago, I thought I was like 10. Amy bought my picture, she told me how old I was, and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm 13. So I thought I was younger when I saw it. So it was that bad. So that was the first thing, that I just always looked younger than my age. The second one, relating to my appearance, is just that I'm short. The third one was that I was just skinny and ashamed of like my body, and I was very pale also. That's the fourth one. I was very just white skinned, super pale. And these four things bothered me a lot. And to try and hide particularly how skinny I was and how pale my skin was, for the first I think my first couple years in youth group, I always wore long sleeve clothes and long pants. So some of you who've been around long enough, you remember the OG Austen.
Flannel Austen.
Yeah, with the part in the middle and the flannel and the cargo jeans. Some of you have been around long enough to see that. That was OG Austen. So OG Austen, he always wore a long sleeve flannel, and a t-shirt was underneath it, tucked into his pants. So I had 2 layers of shirts. And I also always wore cargo jeans. These were the things I always wore. So you never saw my arms, you never saw my legs ever. Like I didn't even think my family hardly saw. Like I was always wearing long sleeves. I was just like, it bothered me that much. And it got to the point where I think I was around, it was either like, I want to say 15. I was at Headwaters Lodge, serving up there for a program they had called the Doulos program, which is what the Doulos program here is named after, but they're different things. The Doulos program at Headwaters Lodge basically volunteered to come up and serve for a couple weeks, kind of run some behind the scenes things at the camp, make food, clean up, that kind of thing. One of the things we did serving up there at the camp was brush burning. So we'd be outside in the sun, like chopping down trees, then gathering all the wood and sticks and burning them in these big brush piles. And like all of us would do it. It'd be like 20 of us outside. And there were some days where it was like 85, 90 degrees with humidity. And I was outside working in the sun, doing all this physical labor, picking up logs, and then going near fires and throwing logs in and burning them. And even with that environment, I still wore the OG Austen outfit. I still wore the cargo pants and the t-shirt with the flannel above it. So that's how ashamed I was, and that's how insecure I was about just the way I looked. I didn't want people to see how skinny I was. I didn't want people to see how pale I was. So I was willing to go to even that length to hide it. Like I was willing to be sweaty and miserable in the heat, as long as people didn't see that part of me. So that was something that weighed on me a lot. And I would, in public, I would try to hide it, try to hide the fact that I would dress kind of weird, because it was sort of, I just looked kind of weird, like with the flannel and the cargo jeans. And I would try to act like my appearance didn't bother me. And occasionally people would ask me, like, why do you always wear cargo jeans? Or like, because it just looked weird for a 14-year-old. At least then it did, in my friend group. And I would try to hide it. I would be like, well, you know, the reason I wear stuff like this is because I don't care about my appearance. So I just wear whatever. You know, I just don't think about it. Which was total lie. It was actually the opposite. I was wearing that in an attempt to hide the way I looked. And so I would sort of just be like, oh, you know, I don't care. I'm not really bothered by my appearance. So I just kind of throw on whatever when I get up in the morning. And so I would give these excuses to try and make people think that I wasn't concerned about my appearance when I was. And one day, things started to change. When I was about 15, my brother Corey was giving me a ride home from school. There used to be a private school here that met in the basement of the church. Before the co-op, there was a private school. And I attended that for 2 years. And my brother Corey was a teacher at that school. And one day, he was giving me a ride home, and he just asked me, he was like, so why do you always wear like long sleeves? Like, is there a particular reason? And I don't remember exactly what I said. I'm sure it was something like I just don't really care, or I get cold easily because I'm lightweight, so I tend to wear like long sleeve clothes. And Corey just saw right through it. Like, he didn't buy me at all. He was like, okay, like, what's the actual reason? And he just like wouldn't let me go. And I don't remember our conversation at all, to be honest. I don't remember what he said or what I said. But I remember when I got home, I felt convicted about what I had been doing. And I felt like I had been uncovered a little bit, like someone had seen through the insecurity barrier I was making. Corey was not the first, I'm sure, but he was the first person to talk to me about it and confront me. And I just felt like maybe I should try wearing just a t-shirt and shorts, like, which seems like really simple and like actually obvious. Like that's what normal people do, right, in the summer. But I was like very intimidated by that. So even that simple thing, wearing t-shirt, shorts, simple to you guys probably, but to me it's very difficult. And then I think like a week or two later, Brett Blaha, he was joking around with some of us at school, and he was like, oh, we should do like clothes swaps. Like, I'll show up dressed like this person, and then you guys show up dressed like me, and we'll like all pretend to be each other. And like, I was known for always wearing the same thing every day. So Brett was like, Austin, how about one day you show up in a t-shirt and shorts, and I'll show up in a flannel and cargo jeans. And I agreed to it, which surprised him. Like, nobody was expecting me to agree to it, so I did. So I went to school like the next day, and it was the first time that I can remember like intentionally wearing shorts and a t-shirt like out in public. Which again, like simple thing to you guys, very difficult for me. And the distinct memory I have of that is I like walked into class and I sat down and I leaned forward and put my arms on the table and reacted because the table felt cold. And my elbows had actually touched the bare table for the first time like in my entire life, I guess. And I didn't know what it felt like to lean your arms on a table. Like, that's how long I've been going with long sleeve clothes. I had literally never done that. I never had my elbow touch a table. And so that was the extent that I was trying to hide the way I looked. I was willing to go to such great lengths, and it took until I was about 15 before I finally started to snap out of it a little bit. And over the years, like, things changed. I got a lot more comfortable. I mean, as you can tell, like, I'm wearing a t-shirt and shorts right now. So this is literally a testimony to the glory of God. Like, you think this is normal, but it took me like 15 years to get here. So this is a good thing that I'm wearing this. So over time, like, it got better. I was still very insecure when I was 15 and wore the t-shirt that day, but over time I got a lot more comfortable. And now, to be honest, like I'm still insecure about my appearance. Like, I still think about what I wear and sometimes how people might view me or accept or reject me based on something I might wear. But is nowhere near to the degree that it used to be. Like, it used to be so bad. So that's one insecurity. Another one was related to sports. So I'm not a very athletic person. I've never really been naturally good at like basketball or soccer or even just like frisbee, like the basic things. And it really bothered me. I remember the high school guys study, which I lead it now, but before me it was led by Nick Lauterbach. And I think I was like, again, like somewhere in the 15, 16 range. I was going to that study. And like some of you guys still do on Monday nights back then, they would always do basketball before study for like 30 minutes or so. And I remember like trying to play basketball like with the guys, and like some of those guys played basketball regularly, some of them did, like they were just like, I don't know, like homeschool, I guess, like me. And there were a couple people who were playing basketball for the first time at that study, myself included. But I was by far the worst one, like, and it was just obvious, like of everyone who was playing, like I was just very obviously the worst. I remember like one of the first times in particular, someone tried to pass the basketball to me, and I freaked out that I like whacked it and like launched it across the court. And I remember that's literally what I did. And I remember being like embarrassed, like, oh shoot, I should have done that. And like looking around to try and like see some like forgiveness in someone's face. And there's this one guy, I'm not gonna say who it was, but there's this one guy that looked at me like stone cold, like, and just shook his head, like utter disappointment across his face that I had done. And like complete, like just shame, right? And so there's been some moments like that when I was around that age, 15 to 16. And so I was just very like embarrassed about just my lack of athletic ability. And anytime I played a sport in a group of people, like not anything competitive at all, but just like casual stuff, like playing basketball after church, or like on a youth group playing, or on a youth retreat playing dodgeball or something, I would be riddled with anxiety the entire time. Like I would feel anxious, like stressed, and the whole time we were playing. So the next question is what changed? Okay, so we know what happened with the appearance thing, like someone confronted me about it, and I got over it a little bit. So what about this? Like what caused me to get over my insecurity about sports? And to be honest with you, I don't think I ever did get over it. Like all those feelings I said, I still get them, actually. I'm still very anxious to play basketball or frisbee or anything like that. It still bothers me. And there was actually, a few days ago, the Doulos were at Matt Basinger's house. And there were like 15 people passing a frisbee like in a circle. And I showed up and like saw everyone passing the frisbee, and I tried so long to avoid walking in that circle. Like everybody except for me was passing the frisbee around, and I went into Matt's house, I like went over and talked to Matt. I like pretended I was like looking for something, like I was anything I could do to not go over to that circle of people playing frisbee. And it got to the point where like it was so long that I was just like, what am I doing? Like I need to just go over. So I did. I walked over to the circle, and I only stood in there for like the last 2 minutes. And the entire time I was standing there was not a lot, but there was this little hint of anxiety, like deep within me somewhere, like just a little bit stressed to be standing there, like making sure no one's throwing it to me type of thing. And so this is the kind of thing I still deal with. And so why do I bring this up? It's because you look up to these older people, you want to be like them. But the reality is, all of us still have insecurity. Like you never reach a point in your life where you finally completely conquered every insecurity you've ever had, and it's all over. So perhaps I've gotten a little bit better about being insecure with my appearance, but with sports, like not so much. It's still stressful. And to be honest, you guys are the first group I think I've ever fully explained that to, like in this way. I don't think I've ever fully admitted that to somebody. And so it's still something I struggle with. I was a little bit worried bringing that up, because now I know like anytime anything sports related happens in these groups, you guys are gonna like hunt me down. So oh well, I've signed up for that now, I guess. But that's something I still struggle with. It's just anxiety about sports and being athletic, or not being athletic, I should say. So I know you guys have insecurities too. I know everyone in this room has something, or I'm sure multiple things that they're insecure about, things they're not confident in about themselves, things that they wish were different. And so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna list like 8 or 9 insecurities here. Every single one of these I list is something I have dealt with on some level. I'm just gonna ask you to raise your hand if you've ever felt insecure or felt ashamed about this thing. So please raise your hand if you've ever felt insecure about your body. Please raise your hand if you've ever felt insecure about your personality. Please raise your hand if you've ever felt insecure about your abilities or lack of abilities. Please raise your hand if you've ever felt insecure about your gender. You just didn't feel comfortable with like you weren't fulfilling the roles of your gender necessarily. I'll give an example. I know some of you are a little confused. What I mean by that, for me, what it is I just felt like I wasn't your stereotypical guy. Like Like I didn't meet like the strong, tough, like rough personality stereotype of some guys. And so I felt like I just wasn't living up to what it meant to be a man. So if you've ever felt insecurity on some level like that, like I'm just different from the other people. Yeah, so I see a few hands now. Raise your hand if you've ever felt insecure. Or actually, let me reword that. Raise your hand if you've ever felt like you're just socially awkward. Yes. So this is, sure that's everyone in this room at some point in their life has felt that way. Raise your hand if you've ever felt like you're just stupid. Like you're not smart like the other people you know. You're not like your friends, not as good at school, not as good at this or that. Raise your hand if you've ever felt like you're just weak. Yep. Maybe you felt like I'm just not like my friends. Has anyone else ever felt that way? I'm not like my friends. So the reason I had us do that, to raise the hands, is because I know when I'm feeling insecure or ashamed, I feel alone. Like I'm the only one that's going through this. And we all know, like, logically in the back of our heads, like, okay, yeah, like at some point someone else has probably felt insecure about this thing, but like in the moment, you know, with your friends, amongst your peers, it doesn't feel that way. Like it feels like you're the only one. It feels like you're the only one who's short, or the only one who's socially awkward, or the only one who doesn't have the abilities of the other people around you. And so I had us raise those hands because I want you to know that you're not alone. And I can't list every single possible insecurity that has ever existed. But I promise you there are other people in the world, and I'm sure many people in this room, who know exactly the type of pain you might be going through with some of your insecurities. And that's the next thing I want to talk about, is I think sometimes we try to downplay our insecurities to ourselves. We try to pretend like they're not important, or that they shouldn't bother us. Like for me, one of the insecurities I mentioned earlier was that I was short. And I wrestled with that a lot when I was younger. I'm mostly over it now, but still a little bit sometimes. It bothers me. But especially when I was like 13, 14, I was by far the shortest guy of all my friends. And that really bothered me. And when it bothered me, I felt like it shouldn't. Like, you know, the fact that I'm short really doesn't matter. That should not bother me. I should just get over it, like just move on with my life. And like, this is not important. Why is this bothering me? And so I want to say, like, if something is bothering you, then it's bothering you, and you need to admit that. The pain you feel from insecurity is real, very real pain, and don't try to deny it. That's something I did a lot, is I tried to just like get over some of the things that were bothering me by telling myself, oh, they're not really important, they don't matter, I should just get over it. This shouldn't bother me. You can't say this shouldn't bother me if it's bothering you. Like, if it's bothering you, you need to find out why. Why is it bothering you? The next thing I want to talk about is just the simple fact that we're created by God. And I think this is something that at least I know I don't take seriously enough. So it says in Genesis chapter 1 that God created mankind in his own image. And if you really think about it, this statement, God created you, has a tremendous power. There's tremendous power in that statement, that God intentionally chose to make you the way that you are. And I think this is one of those sort of facts of life, especially if you grow up in the church. You kind of just grow up knowing, like, God created me. That's just like one of my descriptions. You know, one of the things on you describe me, that's like a footnote somewhere at the bottom. Oh yeah, Austen Coogan, also created by God, just so you know. Like, it's a big deal, the fact that you're created by God. That is extremely huge. That is super important. And it says God created mankind in his own image. And I think each of us reflect the image of God in a unique way. The unique combination of your personality, your life story, your abilities, and etc. They all make you show the glory of God in a unique way that not quite anyone else can do. I mean, why else would there be so many people if God couldn't uniquely put all these different traits like personality, story, abilities into all of us? Like, if you wanted to reflect his glory, why not just make one person reflect the glory of God? but instead there's so many of us. And so each and every one of us is unique, and I believe reflects the glory of God in a way that not quite anyone else can. And this is something that I believe we forget or don't take seriously. Something else is God knew you when he made you. Now, I talked earlier about how I would try to hide my insecurity. People would ask me, like, why do you dress that way? And I'd be like, because I just don't care about my appearance, that kind of thing. I would do things to hide what I was really feeling inside. But the reality is you can't hide from God. And he made you, he knows your inner thoughts, he knows what you're going through. So I just want to read a passage from Psalm 139. You don't need to turn there. I'm going to read the first half, so this will be a little long. I know we tend to zone out sometimes when there's a long passage being read, but I really do feel that it's appropriate to read this. So please just listen. This is Psalm 139 for the director of music, a psalm of David. You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down, and you are familiar with all my ways. Before a word is ever on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. You hem me in behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. Where can I go from your spirit? And where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. And if I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn and settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me, and your right hand will hold me fast. And if I say, surely the darkness will hide me, and the light will become night around me, even the darkness will not be dark to you. The night will shine like the day, for darkness is as light to you. For you created my inmost being, and you knit me together in my mother's womb. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And I think so often we forget the fearfully and wonderfully part. That we're just made by God, like it's just one footnote in our life. But we're not just made by God, we're made fearfully and wonderfully and intentionally. God, when he made you, he knew you. And he knew what he was making when he made you. He knew why he was making you. The things about yourself that maybe you don't like, the insecurities. For me, like I'm short, or I'm weak was another one. Or I'm just concerned about my appearance, how I look to other people, my lack of athletic ability. All these things are intentional by God. So the things that you might feel like are wrong with you, like something about you that, but maybe it's your personality, or whatever it is, whatever you feel insecure about, you might feel like something's just wrong with me. And when God made you, he did not say something was wrong with you. After he made mankind, he said that it was very good in Genesis. He said it was very good. And so don't say something is wrong with me if God himself, when he made us, said that it was very good to make us. One more thing I want to say is insecurity can hurt a lot. There can be a lot of pain. And I know sometimes we don't always know how to talk to people about it. Like I've talked about some insecurities tonight, but like I said earlier, I can't possibly list every single one. And I'm not gonna pretend like I understand what you are insecure about. There are some things that you are insecure about that maybe I don't understand, or that I wouldn't know how to talk to you about. But there is someone who understands, and there's someone who knows you, and there's someone who made you. It says in Matthew 11:28-30, "Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, for my burden is light and easy to bear. I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls." So you don't have to carry the pain alone. If there's something that's bothering you, something that's weighing down on you, something about yourself that you just don't like and can't get over, and you wish could change, but it's unchangeable, you can talk to God about that. You don't have to pretend when you talk to God that you're over it, or that it's not bothering you anymore. Because Jesus, like he said in Matthew, I think it's verse 29, "I am humble and gentle at heart." So whatever you bring to God, whatever you think of, this is not important or I should get over this, Jesus doesn't take that and think that it's not important. Anything you tell Jesus or talk to him about, he's going to take it very seriously. And so if you have a pain that you're dealing with, whether big or small, he is humble and gentle at heart, and he's not going to reject you or say, "That's stupid, why are you bringing this up to me?" So I encourage you, I think one of the only things that has got me through some of the worst insecurities I've had is the fact that I was just constantly talking to God about it. Like whenever I was like in pain or frustrated, like I would just be like, "Lord, like, why did you make me this way? Why am I not good at this? Why can I not do that?" And I would just like vomit it out to God, basically. And I wouldn't have all the answers in those moments. But something about that, just talking to the Lord about your pain and giving him your burdens, is so healing and so relieving. So if you've never done that, if you've never talked to God about your pain, then I encourage you to. And I promise you, you'll find freedom if you talk to God about your pain. I mean, I'm not saying that the insecurity will be over immediately or that you're gonna like move on with a happy life after one prayer. But if you just consistently make it a routine of your life to talk to God about the things that trouble you, you will find more peace throughout your life. So, final stuff. Any questions for me about anything I've said? Or comments?